Cheers! James here from Dadvice TV, your online kidney health coach, and this is Dadvice TV Live. Tonight, my co-host is somebody you all love. He always comes here with helpful, science-based, real information. And tonight, we are going to talk about when your kidney function declines, when can you recover some of that decline? When is the decline not permanent? But before we get to that, I want to remind you guys that my co-host, Dr. Stephen Rosansky, has written one of the best, not one of the best, the easiest to read, the easiest to understand kidney book out there. It is called Learn the Facts About Kidney Disease. You can get it at Amazon. You can also get it as an audio book through Amazon. You can order it through Barnes & Nobles. Your mom and pop bookstores can get you a copy of it. Or you just go online, get that audio book, listen to it. It is so easy to understand, and it helps take away the worry. Because as a kidney patient, when you were diagnosed, there is so much negative information, so much misinformation out there on the internet, and it is challenging to comprehend and make sense of it all once you've been diagnosed. Well, his book tells you what matters, what you need to focus on. So let me go ahead real quick. I'm going to bring my co-host, Dr. Stephen Rosansky, on. And remember, at the end of every one of these discussions, he leaves time to answer your questions. So go ahead and type them in during the show. And then when we're done talking about our core topic, we will go through the questions and answer as many of them as we can. All right. Come on, Dr. Rowe. Hey, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm great, James. I'm great. I'm getting over 10 days of a cold and a good bit of jet lag. My wife and I did a trip to the Baltic states, the states that border Russia, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and we ended up in Warsaw. It was a really interesting trip. And but I'm finally over this cold because I'm lucky I could do the show tonight because I wasn't up to it the last couple of days. But James, you want me to introduce my background? I think It's always something you want me to do. So I am a retired kidney specialist. I still see patients at the free clinic. I have written a book that James mentioned for kidney patients, but I'm also writing a generic book for people who want to live longer, healthier lives, giving you the actual science that will make a difference to potentially save your life and help you live longer and healthier. And so I was a kidney specialist in practice for over 40 years. I started the dialysis program here in Columbia, South Carolina. And I've written a good bit of research papers, over 100 publications. And my research has been recognized as being very important with regard to how renal function declines, what factors influence that decline, as well as when is the appropriate time to start dialysis. And my work, I think, has helped people avoid dialysis since you don't need to start dialysis at high levels of kidney function. And my research and those of my colleagues have shown that it may be best to wait till you're around 5 to 10 or less on your kidney number to start. And tonight we're going to talk about, I guess, a favorite topic and something that there's an awful lot of BS out there about this topic, enormous amount. And I just shared something with James that he's going to share with you. But let me just give you like a little, an advertisement for James' show. Okay. It's a little thing that I kind of modified from an AI deal. Don't be fooled by the web's deceitful flow. Dr. Google may be tempting, but not everything you read is what your kidneys need. Don't fall for miracle cures. Consult trusted doctors and kidney specialists. On Dadvice TV, we debunk the myths and spread awareness in the fight against kidney disease. Now, James, I shared with some. I just had dinner with a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, and he sent me something, and he talked about something that the famous Bill Gates, the famous humanitarian, the brilliant Bill Gates put on, and it's a cure for type 2 diabetes. And I think, and look at this, it is
I'm gonna
so easy.
refresh it.
This is
There.
deep. You go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah, here it is. A video. We can see Bill Gates on there. 15 seconds to cure kidney disease. And look at all these great comments, all of them with thumbs up and hearts, though you can't click on any of them and do anything, which is another indication that this is all fake.
And this is only going to get worse, folks. You guys and girls need to listen to people that are real scientists, like people on James' show, and look at books that are real science-based, like my book. And please stop falling for all this BS on the internet. And there's so much of it. Just as a few examples, you got all these expensive supplements. Forget about them. None of them have really been shown in a randomized controlled trial, double blind, which is the basic for anything to show real effect. I mean, some of them have some slight science, but nothing great. The science of what we talk about is hard science. It's studies that involve tens of thousands of patients. And then you've got these naturopathic cures, the kidney repair pills, the kidney solutions. And last but not least, James' favorite, all the methods to lower your creatinine. Yeah. And let's start right there. Let's start right there. James, why not? You got kidney disease. Why not just go lower your creatinine?
Well, it sounds easy. And I think part of the trick, and it's kind of funny, it is Halloween tomorrow. Part of the trick with lowering creatinine is it's that marker that's used to estimate your kidney function, but kidney patients it's not explained to kidney patients that it's just a marker. This is natural. Muscles create creatinine. Creatinine is not the problem. And as a matter of fact, if you were in an accident and you lost your legs and you lost your arms, your creatinine would drop because you have less muscle mass. But that doesn't make your kidneys any better.
James, that was beautifully said. Beautifully said. Let's dig in further to what James said. So creatinine is a marker. It doesn't harm you. It doesn't do you any good. It comes from something that people use as a supplement, which is what, James, you know?
Creatinine comes from creatinine.
Creatine.
For muscle builders, use it a lot at the gym.
Yes, creatine may have some science. I'm not big on it. If you're a bodybuilder, no other really good usefulness of creatine. Creatine comes from muscle, and that's why people building muscle take creatine, because it may help you build muscle. And this natural thing out of muscle, creatine, is metabolized to creatinine, and it depends on how much muscle you have. The more muscle you have, the more that creatine is created to creatinine. It's not a poison. It's not something that you need to worry about that, oh, my creatinine is what I've really got to get rid of, or I got to get it lower. It's just a marker. And it's a marker of what? It's a marker of what particular measure of kidney function? A big mouthful. Go ahead, James.
It's your estimated glomerular filtration rate, eGFR.
Okay. So let's break it down. Glomerular filtration rate, which is another way to say my kidney function. And what exactly does it mean? If you read my book, you'll look at the anatomy of the kidney, and the kidney has about a million of these units in each kidney. It's called a nephron. That's why the nephrologist, the kidney specialist, all from that same root, nephron, consists of a glomerulus, a bunch of tiny blood vessels, and then a tubule. Just picture the blood coming out of these tiny blood vessels from the glomerulus is filtered into the tubule, okay? And then that eventually becomes urine. So creatinine, why is it a marker? Because it's freely filtered and very little of it is reabsorbed back in the blood. And then there's another way that you can get more into the urine is if it's excreted. So there's very little of this creatinine that gets into the urine beyond what's filtered. So it's a marker of glomerular filtration, okay? And if you get that, you've learned a lot. Very simply, how does creatinine, just in general, relate to your estimated, now the E before GFR means it's just an estimate. It's not the real thing, and we're going to get into that in a minute. How does it relate? The higher creatinine, is that better, James?
No, because it is in the denominator in the formula. So the bigger it gets, the lower your estimated kidney function. And it only has to get bigger by a little bit to lower. It's not a giant number.
Gotcha. Exactly. And so it's based on your size. So people of different sizes may have different muscle mass, and the creatinine has some fudge factors. Any of you who are really interested, you can get online and get the whole equation. The fudge factors are for females versus males, because generally females have less muscle. Generally, of course, not always. And age. As we age, we lose muscle. So the equation adjusts for your age and whether you're male or female. The third thing that it used to adjust for, which I don't agree that they've removed, is race. Because in general, African Americans in general, in my experience, have more muscle mass. But we won't get into why that happened. It's kind of a long story. But I will say this, because we took that fudge factor out of race, if you happen to be African American, you're going to wind up having a lower eGFR, which the only good thing I can see is you get on the transplant list sooner, because they will allow you to get on the transplant list in the United States once that eGFR is below 20. So let's just leave it at that. Okay. Now, so if you happen, so the equation is not real good. It's for the average patient. So if you happen to be really skinny or really fat or really muscular, the equation is probably going to be accurate. The other reason why it could be inaccurate is if you have had a large amount of weight loss. A lot of people are on the GLP-1 drugs. We've had a lot of talks about that. When you lose a lot of weight, you lose fat, but you also lose muscle. And I will briefly mention something that has been a sore spot for me, and that is there is another book out there that promotes, and there's a diet book with it, that promotes keto analog supplements and extremely low protein diets. And those extremely low protein diets can be very harmful, especially for older folks. But just real quick, and these people that take these supplements and they have a GFR of 50 or 45, let's just use that one. Oh, wow, I have a GFR of 45 and I took these supplements and guess what? My GFR went to 55. Well, guess what, folks? There's a couple of things that can happen. Number one, if you take these real low protein diets, it's likely you're going to lose muscle mass. Your muscle mass depends on protein. You lose muscle mass, guess what? Your creatinine gets lower. And guess what? As James said, creatinine is in the denominator. So your eGFR will look higher. There's another even bigger issue. From one lab test to the next, the same lab, what is the variation of the response that you're going to get when you do that measurement? How much will it vary by at a minimum? At a minimum. Do you know, James?
Isn't it about 10% each direction?
Yeah, each direction, exactly. And what percentage variation? 10, 20, 30? Any idea?
Isn't it 20% total? I hear an echo.
Okay. It's a minimum of, let's use the minimum amount, 10%. Let's just say that the test is really good. It only varies by 10% one measure to the next. Okay, so here you are told that CD, you're taking these protein supplements, keto acid, you're on the real low protein diet, your GFR, when one time it was 45 and you go, oh, wow, now it's 55. Well, guess what? Your real GFR could be 50, and 10% of 50 is what? 5.
Yep,
so
if 55 to 45 is your range.
Exactly. So if your real GFR is 50, and it's 5, that's the same as 50, that's 10%. Or 5 was the same as 50 also. So all of these cures are BS, especially when you look deeper into them. And the other thing that has been done, which I totally agree with, is that a lot of labs stop reporting over 60 eGFRs. And that's what James was trying to tune you into just a minute ago. Because the normal creatinine is about 1. Just leave it as a round number in the U.S. And outside the U.S., it's like 100. But anyway, let's just say 1. And if it went from 1 to 1.2, that's a massive change. That's a 20% change. So you could have large changes of your eGFR, and these will be in the 60 to 100 range with a little tiny change in your creatinine. So the wise decision was, let's just not even report it when it's over 60. And they also said, to prove that you have kidney disease, you need to have values below 60 twice 3 months apart. So don't panic when you get your first result and it looks abnormal. Doc should do it again in 3 months and see if it's really abnormal. Now, things that can raise creatinine is kidney failure. Yeah, kidney failure can raise creatinine, but what else can raise creatinine? James, you got a couple things just in general?
So there's medication.
There are. I'm not going to get into that, but okay, that's a little bit of a tricky one. Which one were you thinking about? Anything in particular?
No, nothing in particular.
All right. So what I'm referring to are, if you go from a vegetarian diet and you decide to eat a high meat, high protein diet, meat has creatinine in it itself. If you're a big meat eater, you're going to have some creatinine coming in as part of your diet. So if you have very low protein diet, you may have lower creatinine. Very high protein diet, you may have a higher creatinine. If you do extreme exercise, you could get your creatinine up. So those are a couple of things. And
that's why I don't run marathons.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll let that one slide, Jay. Good excuse. All right. So anyway, everything that we've talked about is a laboratory change, nothing to do with what your kidneys are actually doing. And a lot of this is just lab change. We are going to discuss real declines that are reversible a little later on in this talk. And James knows this well. Don't panic or celebrate for any single value, okay? You need to look at what, James? And we've talked about this a lot.
The trends over time.
Exactly. You need to see what's your kidney function, and we'll get to your urine in a minute, what they're doing over time. That's what really matters. Okay. Now, there is another marker that is not as dependent upon muscle mass. That is another kidney function test that some of you might have heard about. It's more expensive and it's not done that frequently. But when there's a question about what your real kidney function is, especially if you're at the extremes of weight, the extremes of muscle mass, the extremes of diet, bodybuilders, blah, 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 you probably want to use something called cystatin A, another marker. That's all you have to know. It's another marker that's used to measure your kidney function. Okay. Now, just always worth mentioning, even if you are over 60 eGFR, doesn't mean that you don't have kidney disease. In what situations, James, can a patient have a GFR over 60 still need a DKD?
If they have protein in their urine.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. And is one that's not talked about a lot, and we don't talk about it much on the show. But if you are a very young patient, your eGFR should be between 60 and 80. And if you're like in your 20s or 30s, if your eGFR is between 60 and 80, it may not be normal for it. Certainly, even if you're over 60 eGFR and you have significant protein, which is generally measured by what, and everybody who watches your show should know this by now. How do you measure urine protein, James?
It is a urinalysis.
Well, that's one. That's a screen. The urine analysis is the screen. It gives you trace or 1+ or 2+ or 3+ protein.
Are you looking for the albumin creatinine ratio?
That's the one that's much more reliable because it's not dependent upon whether you drank a lot or you drank a little, the concentration of your urine. And generally in the US, if that ratio is over 30, it's considered abnormal. Outside the US, it would be over 3. But with regard to, now that's over 30, but that's not necessarily serious protein. I consider serious protein in the urine that you need to get aggressive about treating once you're in the range in this country of over 200 on that albumin creatinine or over 20 outside the US. And again, because urine protein like serum creatinine can vary by lab test. So again, you should have it repeated and look at the trend over time. Okay, now we're going to get to the real cures, or should we say reversals, of a decreased GFR.
All right, this is what every kidney patient is hoping for.
Right. Well, and it's certainly a serious issue for somebody who, like you had, gets serious AKI and is threatened to need dialysis. So AKI is acute kidney injury, and what it means is it's a reversible loss of kidney function. AKI, a reversible loss of kidney function. And the way I like to look at this, and this is actually the way you're taught in medical school and kidney specialists are taught. You look at the various types of AKI, and there are several types. It could be due to something before your kidney, which we call pre-renal. In other words, there's not enough flow or pressure going into those glomeruli to be able to produce the filtrate. And there's a bunch of these that can cause you to have a decline in your GFR. And James knows the top one on the list, which is the top one on the list of before the kidney, causing you to get an AKI. Real common, happens all the time. Okay, I don't know. Wait a minute, I can't hear you. Are you?
Oh, whoops, sorry. I keep hitting the mute button because I hear an echo sometimes. I was
Thought you
reading the comments.
I thought
Let's
you
pretend I
intended.
got it right, and you just repeat what the right answer is.
Okay, I figured you didn't have the answer, so you muted it. All right, what
Well,
is it?
is it dehydration?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfecto. Perfecto. One of the biggest reasons that somebody, especially if you already have an abnormal eGFR, if you go and get bad diarrhea or you get vomiting or you just can't drink or eat, that is a quick way to get your GFR to go down. And there are a couple of tricks that us docs look at to tell if you're dehydrated. I'll just mention them in passing. One is when you do a urine analysis, there's something called specific gravity. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. Have you heard of that, James? You know what that
Yep.
kind of refers to? What does that refer to?
I know that impact. If you're dehydrated, they can tell it there, and also the color. Correct?
Not the color.
Oh,
The
not the color.
color can be not very dependable. But if you are dehydrated, your urine, you'll be concentrated, which gives you a high specific gravity. That's more concentrated. The other thing is a lot of people who get dehydrated, when they get their blood count done, the hemoglobin will go up. It's concentrated. Okay. All right. Now, another really common pre-renal, before the kidney thing that gets your GFR down is a drop in your blood pressure. Very, very common, especially, and I see this all the time. I've seen it in the hospital. I've even seen it in the ICU, especially if you are not telling your doctor about your blood pressures at home, and the doctor's getting the wrong information. They may overprescribe your drugs for blood pressure, and that can lower your blood pressure to the point where your kidneys will have AKI, a decline of kidney function. And what I always tell people is if you're feeling weak or dizzy, please check your blood pressure, make sure it's not too low. If it's low around the 100 range, hold that dose of medicine. Wait till your next dose. Overtreatment is not good for your kidneys. Another one, pre-renal, which is very, very common, because half of all people with advanced kidney disease are going to have weak hearts, congestive heart failure. And if the pump is not pumping strong, that's going to cause a pre-renal problem. And there's one thing that I have to mention, and I see it all the time, excuse me. A lot of you folks, if you or your family members, your parents have heart failure, you may see them have a lot of swelling in their legs, really, really swollen. It's called edema. And weak heart with edema. And what happens is a lot of doctors who are not educated enough think that they don't want to get rid of that fluid because it's going to raise your creatinine, right? If you get rid of that fluid, it may well raise your creatinine, but it will potentially give you a longer life, a longer survival. So anyway, that's a dicey little issue that's often treated improperly. But a weak heart can definitely give you pre-renal. Other things that are pre-renal are drugs. So the drugs affect those glomeruli, and I'm not going to get into detail how it works, and it affects the amount of blood flow going in, which in turn affects the filtrate. These drugs, the most common ones that everybody uses are what, James? Big number one culprit of dropping your eGFR.
Is it the of dropping your EDR? Is it the diuretics?
Well, diuretics, will not drop your GFR if you have extra body fluid. If you have extra body fluid and heart failure, that's another story. But just extra body fluid in general, get you to your dry weight by diuresing you is fine. I'm thinking of other drugs, very commonly used.
The SGLT2s?
Well, we're going to get to those. You're right. I'm thinking of the NSAIDs. The NSAIDs, big one, huge culprit. The Motrin, ibuprofen, the Advil, the Naprosyn, even the Toradol, the Voltaren. These are massive, and even aspirin is an NSAID. And those drugs, if you've got CKD, you want to use them only when you need them. Don't use it too much. And another way to treat your pain, if you happen to have advanced kidney problem, is you can use the NSAIDs topically, which most people don't even know about. There are topical forms of these NSAIDs, and acetaminophen won't hurt your kidneys. Tylenol, acetaminophen. Now, James was mentioning other drugs that are also going to be pre-renal. They affect the flow in the glomeruli and the production of filtrate. They are all the drugs we talk about almost every show. They are the ACEs, the prils like captopril and enalapril. They can also cause a pre-renal situation. They are the ARBs, like the tans, the losartan, candesartan. And as James mentioned, even the diabetes drugs, the SGLT2 diabetes drugs, which are also good drugs to slow decline of kidney function, all of these drugs, including the weight loss drugs, the GLP-1s, all four of these classes of drugs can cause a pre-renal decline of GFR. And that's why it's very common when you start these drugs to initially get a decline of your GFR. But over the long haul, if you're one of these people that has significant protein in the urine, like I said, in the US, albumin, creatinine over 200 or so, or over, let's say, 1 to 2 plus on the dipstick protein, or over 20 outside the US, even though you may get an initial decline, they're worth continuing. And a lot of my colleagues say you can even decline up to 30%. But again, it's another factor that can cause a pre-renal decline in GFR. And then, of course, if you stop the drugs, whether it's the NSAIDs and you give some fluid, or if you need to stop the ACE, the ARB, the SGLT2, or GLP-1, these are reversible declines. These are not permanent declines. And then, so you've got, okay.
Well, a good example of that, I still have my bottle over here. Since I paid so much for this bottle of Jardiance, which I only used for a month and I have all these extras, before I started this one, my eGFR was 35, holding pretty stable. It dropped to 22. My doctor had me stop. Someone just asked, James, what's your GFR at? My last labs, which has been a month now, I was at 32. So I feel like I've recovered. I'm back. That 32 is the same as 35.
Yeah, and the thing is, James, we've had a lot of talks about these, and we're going to mention it more in a minute. Let me go on to the other type of AKI, reversible decline of kidney function. So it's all of the drugs we talk about on the show that can do it, and especially if you combine a patient's got vomiting or diarrhea, and they're on, the ACE, the ARB, the SGLT2, or taking NSAIDs, that can make this pre-renal problem worse. But again, it's reversible. It's not permanent. And don't be fooled by saying, oh, I cured my kidney disease with this magic potent. It's just expected as part of kidney disease. Then there are other AKIs, which we don't talk about a lot on the show because they're kind of unusual. But if you've got one of these, they call it glomerular disease or glomerulonephritis, big word, acutely that can cause a decline. Or, and this is common, a lot of drugs, like some of the GERD drugs, like Prilosec, Nexium, and even some antibiotics can sometimes cause an AKI. And guess what? If you stop the drugs, the kidney gets better. So there are reversible causes of decline in kidney function, and they are AKIs. They're not cures in the sense that you've got diabetic kidney disease or hypertensive kidney disease, you've had it for years and your GFR is 30 or 40, you're not going to cure it with any magic potent. You want to slow the decline. And with that in mind, James, and we talk about this a lot on your show, what is the best indicator for people that have serious kidney disease about slowing the decline? Which aspect of treatment? Do you remember?
Well, we want to get our blood pressure under control. We want to reduce the protein that's in our urine. To me, those are the top two things you get on, and any bad habits you have. If you're smoking, if you're overusing NSAIDs, stop it.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You hit it on the head. So this is not a cure, but what it is, it's you can pretty much bank on, this is what our research has shown, and there's a lot of it. If you happen to be one of those patients with significant protein in the urine, and I mean a lot more than 30 or 3, I'm talking about in the 200 range or more, and you get rid of that high level of urine protein, that is a good indicator that your kidneys are going to slow down in terms of their decline, okay? And as James mentioned, all of the drugs that reversible declines of kidney function over long term are beneficial for your heart function, like the ACEs and the ARBs. They're good to slow decline of kidney function, especially if you've got protein in the urine. And they also decrease your risk of dying from heart attacks and strokes. Then you have the SGLT2, which is a diabetes drug. And they have been shown, like, these are drugs like Diardance, Invokana, Farxiga. These are some of your SGLT2s that a lot of you folks may be on. And they're great drugs for diabetes. They're not so great for people that have advanced CKD. Do you know why? This is a little thing. What these drugs do is they get more sugar in your urine, because the kidney normally, as you filter that sugar, it goes back into the bloodstream. But these drugs block that, and they get the sugar to come out in the urine. But if you're not making that much filtrate, they're not going to work as well for your diabetes. But they do work well to prevent cardiovascular deaths. So they're great drugs even beyond the kidney. And not like the ACEs and ARBs decrease cardiovascular deaths. That's why they're really good drugs to use to treat high blood pressure. And the weight loss drugs, the GLP-1s, right? A lot of you may be on them. These drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, semaglutide, liraglutide, the glutides. They have some data to show that not only can they help your diabetes get under control, get you to lose 10 to 20% of your body weight, which that can reverse type 2 diabetes, and we'll discuss that on another show. And they also may slow decline of kidney function and decrease your risk of having a heart-related death. The last group of drugs, and James is on one of those, spironolactone. I'm not a big fan of that. They're called aldosterone antagonists. And the big expensive one, the finerenone. Finerenone is the one that's real expensive. It's just like what James takes, spironolactone or plerinone. The reason why I'm not really keen on these drugs, even though they have shown some benefit in slowing decline and may have a cardiovascular benefit, because I think ACEs and ARBs are very important drugs for you all to be on for your blood pressure and for possible kidney health and for possible cardiovascular heart health. But those drugs can raise what electrolyte, James? The ACEs.
Potassium?
Exactly. And together with the spironolactone or finerenone, the potassium problem, to me, it's not worth the risk. And there's other drugs that are safer that have been shown with a lot of work, especially the SGLT2s and especially ACEs and ARBs, to slow decline of kidney function, especially for those of you who've got a good bit of protein in the urine. So I gotta take a breather, have a drink, and we can answer a few questions, James, unless you have a question first.
All right. We have a lot of questions. Hold on one second. I'm going to mute your mic while I talk because it's coming back as an echo. So the first question, and this is one we've talked a lot about, we have a great video answering this question. And the last time I checked, it was almost at 1 million views, but maybe you can briefly talk about it during this show tonight. And you know what that question is? How do I get protein out of my urine? And we just touched on some of those medications that can help with that.
Right. Okay. So let me be specific about it. And as James said, that was a real popular Dadvice talk. And if you are one of these patients who's got significant protein in the urine, and again, around 200 or more US, around 20 or more on that albumin creatinine, consistently 1 to 2 plus, consistently or more, then you need to be at a minimum on either an ACE, which is a pril, captopril and allopril, or an ARB, not both, a TAN like losartan, candesartan. That's the baseline. Then you can add on, the next one to add on would be the diabetes drug, the SGLT2, which has an enormous amount of research about the fact that that can slow decline of kidney function, decrease protein in the urine. All three of these types of drugs can do both, and decrease your risk of dying from heart-related problems. The last one, if you're still having high amounts of protein in the urine, would be a GLP-1. Now, if you happen to be overweight and you're diabetic and you're qualified to get it through insurance, GLP-1 is a drug you may want to use sooner to help decrease the protein and slow the decline. And then the last category is the one we just talked about, the ones that raise your potassium, like finerenone, spironolactone, etc. So we got a whole bunch of drugs that can help lower your urine protein and slow decline of kidney function.
Fantastic. Okay, here's another great question, and I'm going to second to activate. That may take away the echo on that I get when I unmute your mic. George asks, what's the best questions to ask a potential new nephrologist on the first visit? So let's assume someone is told, hey, we're seeing some kidney stuff, and they go to a nephrologist. They don't know. I know exactly what they're thinking. I don't know what to ask. What should I be talking to them about?
Okay, well, the best thing to do is read my book and go in there educated. Because you'll go in there and educate yourself, and realize that 90+% of you that have been told you have CKD have a slightly decreased estimated GFR. And one of the first things you may want to do is say, hey, doc, my eGFR is 55. And I heard through Dr. Rowe and James that my eGFR may be normal because I'm 75 years old. What do you think? And your doctor should say, well, yeah, there is evidence that the normal value for somebody over 70, let's say, may be between 45 and 60. Okay. The next question is, doc, I have a eGFR of 50, but I don't have protein in the urine. Am I going to go on dialysis? And your doctor should say that would be extremely unlikely. Extremely unlikely. Then you can say, well, doc, well, then why should I even care about the eGFR of 50? And your doctor should say, because that is another risk factor like high blood pressure or high cholesterol for getting cardiovascular disease like heart attacks or strokes. And if your doctor is savvy enough to tell you those things, you got yourself a good doctor.
Perfect answer, Doc. I love it. I'm going to snip this little clip right there and save it as a video for people because that was excellent. And I love that you covered all the key things that people are worried about. Because when they hear kidney disease, they go on the internet and everything is focused on the moneymaker, dialysis.
So let me give you one more thing. If you happen to be a patient who has so-called CKD4, which is, these stages are arbitrary. It just goes by the estimated GFR. And in that stage, the estimate is in the range of 15 to 30. So you're going into your doctor, you're like James, he's got a CKD4, and you go in with a GFR of 25. And you go, doc, I got a GFR of 25. I'm going to need dialysis soon. Isn't that the case? What do you think, doc? And if your doctor says, yeah, as soon as you get to 15, we're going to consider it, get yourself a new doctor. And what you should do is say, hey, doc, when should I even start thinking, or when should you start thinking that dialysis may be in my future? And that would be if you are a younger person, if you have a lot of protein in the urine, and you're in that stage 4, get ready for dialysis. It may be coming in your lifetime for sure. If you're an older person like me, or maybe even James, he's not quite older, but I'm hopeful that James is going to go a long time before there's even a thought that he may need dialysis.
Hey, I'm hoping they invent something by that time because they've got, in my mind, they've got lots of runway in front of them.
Exactly. And in my mind, and in the minds of experts like me who have written about when to start dialysis, it should not be by your kidney number. Not by your kidney number. It should only be when you start having symptoms related to kidney failure that you can't control with other medications like diuretics for your fluid. You got these drugs to raise your hemoglobin if you're anemic. You got drugs to take care of your potassium. I mean, there's a lot of ways to manage you. And what the research has shown is that in general, if you can hold off dialysis, you may actually live longer. And especially if you're in your 80s, holding off dialysis may mean you never go on dialysis because you're likely to die of something else. Okay. That's what your doctor should tell you.
Excellent. And kind of related to that, you mentioned kidney failure. Now, that's a word that a lot of people get confused on because a lot of doctors still use it for stage 5. you're in kidney failure. Your GFR is 15. Am I really in kidney failure?
Okay, James, you hit on something that's one of my pet peeves. I think that that definition of stage 5, which is not just 15 to 15 or less. So sometime between 15 and 0, yeah, you may need dialysis. But since they called it kidney failure at 15, too many people went on dialysis at 15 or more, or 10 to 15, which is way early and has been shown by my research, which has been called a game changer in nephrology, by the way, and a lot of other people's research, starting people at 10 to 15 or over 15, harmful, not beneficial, not beneficial. And that was a huge mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people who are newly diagnosed in the Facebook groups, GFR 13, 14, and they're depressed because their doctor, in my opinion, incorrectly used the term kidney failure. They have extremely low kidney function, but their kidneys are still working, and it may be an AKI or something. It's a term that just scares people. And then that leads them, to tie this back to our topic, to looking at the woo-woo, the fake stuff, and falling prey to it, being more gullible to think, oh, well, my kidneys are already failed. I'm going to do this low protein diet and pay this guy $150 a month for his keto analog supplements that he says I have to have.
Well, yeah, and James, the thing that it's a real thing. If you do not have AKI, and you need to ask your doctor, hey, doc, my kidney function went from 60 to 15. Is it reversible? And many times it is reversible by stopping the drugs, by getting the fluids, and don't rush into dialysis. It's rarely an emergency, very rarely an emergency. So when your doc says, hey, you went from 60 to 15, I'm going to put you on dialysis, say, hey, doc, let's see if my kidneys recover. But beyond that, if you go to your doc, who's a good doc, he's not rushing to put you on dialysis, but you should discuss with him. And I've got a lot of information in my book about people that are in that category. How do I prepare? What's the best thing for me to do for my future with regard to kidney failure? Because especially if you're a younger person, you need to prepare yourself. When should I get on the transplant list? What type of dialysis should I consider? All of these things we go into in good detail in the book, and you can get that information and go to your doctor with it to decide your best course of action.
Yeah, and one thing I like to remind everyone about your book, and yours was the only one that did this. It was easy to understand. And I mentioned that to you when we first met and started talking. I didn't need a medical guide and a thesaurus, a medical thesaurus to help me read it, comprehend it, and know what to do. It was so simple. And when you did your audiobook, you realized just how easy your book is to understand when you listen to it back. Like, yeah, it's like talking to a friend who's really educated, who has all the science, and is telling you, hey, here's what you need to focus on. Here's what matters. Here's what you need to do. Now, we had another question here about someone who, let's see, their doctor prescribed dexlansoprazole, I don't know how to pronounce that, for acid reflux. But the person is worried about it. It may have a negative impact on their kidneys. What are your thoughts? They said they're CKD stage 3.
Okay, first of all, stage 3, we need to at least mention that. Stage 3 includes 30 to 60 range. And again, if your 3A is a new breakdown, which is 45 to 60 range. And again, if you're in the 70 plus, 80 plus year group, that may be a normal value for you as long as you're not having protein in the urine. I'm glad you bring up that it's lansoprazole. It's one of these drugs to decrease the acid reflux, ulcer problems, stomach ulcers, but it's not to be used long term because, as we said, it's one of those drugs that can give you an AKI long term, and you stop the drug, it usually reverses. So yeah, I would take it if you have symptoms that are severe. Take it for the shortest time and try to use other drugs like the normal antacid type drugs and other older drugs like cimetidine, which don't have that kidney insult.
All right, here's a question related to a conversation, a heated conversation my wife and I were having today. Is from Care. She says, what supplements, which is a very generic term, should you or can you take with your kidneys? So you're a kidney doc. In all the, if as a kidney patient, I go into message boards, all I see is half the conversations are about supplements. Pretty much people recommending this, that. It's the woohoo. Okay. What, as a doctor, a nephrologist, what do you say when someone comes to you asking about what supplements should they
Okay,
be taking?
so let me not just talk from one doctor. There's an organization called the National Kidney Foundation. It's a U.S. organization for kidney patients, and they have many people involved in that organization. They have lots of meetings. They have a position paper on supplements. They say avoid them. This is from the group of doctors across the board, the kidney organization. Avoid supplements. Why? Because they may contain harmful stuff in the supplements. And there are no supplements that have good research evidence, as opposed to all the things that we talk about on Dadvice TV that have enormous amount of research support to say they're beneficial. Supplements are not regulated by the FDA. You don't know what's in them. They could potentially harm your kidney, and they're not worth the money. When you know that there are things that actually work, use the things that work, that there's a lot of science behind. Save your money is my best advice. But people can't stay away from this. And there's all kinds of advertising to promote nonsense supplements.
Yeah. All right. Last question, 'cause we're at the top of our time, and I've never seen this question before. And let's see if you have an opinion on it. Mark asked, what about testosterone gel? Is that bad for your kidney? So I'm going to assume this is a topical form of testosterone.
Yeah. Okay. So testosterone is real popular. It's even being used in women that have decreased libido. Testosterone gel is not harmful. It's not efficacious. It doesn't really do the trick. If you really have low testosterone, in men, you can measure testosterone. There's free testosterone, bound testosterone, but you can get your active testosterone level. And if it's low and you're having decreased libido, you're tired and weak, it may have a benefit. On the other hand, there is still an open case about, is it potentially something, if you take it at high dose. Topical is very low dose. If you take it in injection, which is the way to get therapeutic levels of testosterone, will that increase your risk for men of prostate cancer? And the jury's out on that. So nothing harmful for the kidneys. You want to use it, go ahead. I'm not sure how much benefit it is, but like so many other things, whether it's a supplement, whether it's topical testosterone, there is a massive placebo effect, which is real. And the placebo effect is all you need to raise your libido or whatever your issue is. So let's leave it at that.
Very good. All right. I'm going to mention your book one more time. We've had it written. The title's down here at the bottom of the screen, Learn the Facts About Kidney Disease. But I got this wonderful picture right here that's animated about it. That's Dr. Rowe's current book. Remember, he's working on a new one that's going to help you live longer. Go to Amazon. You can also go to go.dadvicetv.com/book. That'll take you right to Amazon, to his book, where you can order yourself a copy or listen to it in the car. Get the audiobook version of it. All right, Dr. Rowe, it is always a pleasure and a joy having you on here. And I always learn something new every single time. And for everyone else, I will be back next week, next Tuesday, with renal dietitian Jen Hernandez at 6 p.m. Eastern for 30 minutes. She'll be on here answering your questions. So if you're interested in asking questions to a dietitian, jump on during that short 30-minute window. All right, Doc, thank you so much for being here. And everybody else, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.